Socialism in Europe and the Russian Revolution. Let us understand the title of the lesson. Socialism is an idea. Those who followed these ideas were called socialists. The socialists felt that all the citizens must share the resources. These ideas found place in Russia. It led to the famous Russian Revolution of 1917, where private property and capitalism were considered as social evils. But in Russia, they went a step further, where the resources were owned by the state, which they called communism. Those who followed communism were called communists. So there is a slight difference between socialism and communism. In socialism, the resources are shared by the citizens, but in communism, the resources are owned by the state. The ideas of communism have come from socialism. The aim was to throw out capitalism and the rule of private property. So this is what the Russian Revolution is all about. If you understand this, then the whole lesson will be clear to you. So let's begin with the age of social change. After the French Revolution, new ideas began to spread. The ideas of individual rights and having governments with laws. In India, Raja Ram Mohan Roy and Desrosiers liked these ideas. However, different groups of people in Europe, like the liberals, radicals, and conservatives, had different responses to these. 1.1 Liberals, radicals, and conservatives. The liberals tolerated all religions. They were opposed to powers of dynastic rulers. They wanted to protect rights of individuals. The radicals wanted government based on majority religion. They supported women to get right to vote. The conservatives were opposed to liberals and radicals. They did not accept changes easily. They were ready for change, but they favored a slow change by respecting past. 1.2 Industrial Society and Social Change. The Industrial Revolution brought changes. The negative changes of the Industrial Revolution were men, women, and children had to work in factories. They had to work for more hours but got less pay. Sometimes they were unemployed if there was no demand for goods. There were housing and sanitation problems. Therefore, the liberals and the radicals wanted solutions to these problems. They thought that giving freedom to an individual was the best solution to all the problems, where the poor could work and the rich or the capitalists also had freedom to work. Thus, societies would develop. Therefore, the nationalists, liberals, and radicals favored revolutions. They thought revolutions would give equal rights to everyone. In Italy, Giuseppe Mazzini was of the same opinion. 1.3 The coming of socialism in Europe. The ideas of socialism began to get attention. The socialists were opposed to private property. They said that private property was the root cause of all the evils. Therefore, they talked of collective social interest, where all the people would be involved. How to make it possible was the question. Therefore, Robert Owen started a cooperative society called New Harmony in USA. In France, Louis Blanc formed cooperative societies and forced government to support cooperatives. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels brought out their theories. They said that profit must go to workers. A owner of the factory makes profit and the workers just get little. That should not happen. The profit should go to workers. That's what they explained. And to achieve this, they said, the workers must throw out capitalists and the rule of private property, because these were the root causes of all the evils. The capitalists had all the money with them, and those who had private property had all the property with them. So the poor people did not get anything. So they asked the workers to unite and fight against this. And by doing this, they said a new society would come, which they called Communist Society. 1.4 Support for Socialism. The socialist ideas began to spread in Europe. They formed an international body called the Second International. Associations were formed by workers in England and Germany. That is, the workers working in factories came together and formed groups. They demanded for better living and working conditions. They collected funds in order to help the members in times of trouble. They demanded less hours of work. They demanded right to vote. The Russian Revolution. The Russian Revolution began in 1917. The socialists took control of Russia. It is very important to know the conditions in Russia before 1917. Therefore, in 2.1, let's see how the Russian Empire was in 1914. In 1914, Russia was ruled by Tsar Nicholas II. Majority religion was the Russian Orthodox Christianity. There were other religions too. Let's see how the economy and society of Russia was. Moscow and St. Petersburg had more industries. There were factories, but most of the factories were privately owned. In the small workshops, people had to work for 15 hours. There were few associations. Most of the people were agriculturists, about 85% of the population. The workers were divided by skill. Example, the metal workers demanded more respect in the society because of their skill. Women were paid less. Peasants did not respect the nobility much. They wanted to take the lands of the nobles. Lands were often brought together and cultivated in Russia. Land was divided as per the needs of the people. So an element of socialism was already there in Russia with regard to the cultivation of land. Father Georgy Gapom led a procession of workers to the palace of the Tsar to place their demands. But when they reached the palace, they were attacked. About 100 workers were killed and 300 were wounded. This incident is known as the incident of Bloody Sunday in the history of Russia. This incident led to protests and strikes all over Russia, which is called the 1905 revolution, where there were strikes, universities were closed, lawyers, doctors, workers all joined this revolution. After the 1905 revolution, the Tsar took an action to take control of the things. The Tsar dismissed Duma, that is the Russian parliament. He declared unions illegal. No one could question the Tsar. He changed voting laws. Socialism in Russia. Russian Social Democratic Party was formed in 1898. In the year 1900, Socialist Revolutionary Party was formed. This party fought for the rights of peasants. Peasants means farmers. This party supported the peasants to get land of nobles. Nobles were the rich holding the land. Bolshevik and Menshevik had their own views about certain issues in Russia. A turbulent time. Turbulent means having confusion or conflicts. In 1904, the condition of Russian workers were very bad. There were high prices of goods, but they had low wages. There was an incident where 4 workers were dismissed. Therefore, there were strikes in Russia. And these workers who went on strikes demanded higher wages, 8 hours of work, and good working conditions. The First World War and the Russian Revolution. In this paragraph, we are going to see the conditions in Russia during the First World War. The First World War began in 1914. Russia fought this war on 2 fronts, Western Front and Eastern Front. Russia suffered heavy defeats on the Eastern Front. The weakness in the army was exposed. People in Russia were very unhappy because of the defeats of the Russians. The Russian army had to retreat. Retreat means come back. While retreating, they destroyed crops and buildings. In olden days, this was a military strategy to destroy crops and buildings so that the enemy who followed them would not get anything to eat or a place to stay. But this action of the army led to problems in Russia, the problems of refugees. Refugees are people who don't get anything to eat or place to stay. There were about 3 million refugees. By 1917, there were 7 million casualties. Impact of the First World War on Russian industries. The Russian industry suffered heavily. The supplies were cut off. Railway lines began to break up. There was shortage of essential goods. There was shortage of labor in industries because men were called in the war. Small workshops were shut down